Like my mother, one thing she would always tell me was, "You need to be smart. You need to be the head of the house. You need to rule
Okay,
your
wait till
husband."
okay, okay. These are. I just want to make sure I'm hearing this thing. Is this implied or this was being told?
Um, I was born in an island and came to America when I was about 4 or 5 years old.
Which island?
Island of Samoa.
Okay, okay.
And yeah, that's the independent island because
Okay.
there's American Samoa and then
Oh,
there's what used to be Western, but now is independent because we want our freedom.
okay.
Yes, from which was in New Zealand, and before that was with Germany.
Okay, okay.
Yes. So when I came to the States, didn't know a lick of English. We spoke our language, which is the Samoan language, and went to what church our parents, told us to go to, which was a mixture of the Samoan culture along with the Methodist. And then later on, when I was a teenager, we switched over to the Christianity. I remember them removing the name Methodist and putting Christian Church, the first Christian congregation church. There was very strict growing up. I know that for growing up for us women, we wear what we call pulutasis,
Okay.
lava-lavas, because we had to respect our elders and people around. Which is actually kind of interesting because now when I think back, we wore skirts. And when we did wear pants, we had to wear lava-lavas. What we call lava-lavas looks like skirts, wraps.
Okay.
Yes, our fathers, well, the men are very strict.
Okay.
The mothers are strict. They didn't allow us to go out much with other friends and stuff. We pretty much had to stay home, learn how to cook. The women, although the women did, I noticed the older women, they were more of the leaders rather than the fathers
Okay.
were.
In
The
Samoa-
fathers,
in Samoa-
yes, in the
okay.
Samoan cultures, like my mother, for example, she's more of, if she didn't get her way and stuff, it would, be an issue. As far as the religion go, we had to read our Bibles every day. My grandfather, it was a must. We got up at about 6 a.m., 6 p.m. Those were the times all the children had to be out. We got spanked if we didn't. And he was very, very, very strict on us, stern. We had to know the word or read the Bible. We didn't quite understand it because they didn't break it down for us.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand because I used to always ask, but in our culture, you don't ask a question, you just do as you're told. So growing up, that was pretty much, when we get home from school, it was put your homework away, don't speak English, it was just speak Samoan around the house.
Okay.
Yes, and they were very big on discipline, very big.
So you was required to that came from your grandfather.
Yes, because my dad was hardly around. He had to work like 2-3 jobs.
Okay.
And my mom,
So you was pretty raised by your grandparents.
Yes.
Pretty much. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And they were very strong Christians.
Yes, sir.
So you grew up having to read the Bible, didn't understand it quite because they didn't really break it down. So now I'm assuming you did this all the way to your college, all the way to college, or
Until my grandfather passed away I actually left for the military at the age of 21.
that's when he got passed through.
Yes.
Okay. So were you doing that even in your high school years?
Yes.
Okay.
Even,
So then when you left high school, left high school, went on to the military, you said?
yes, sir.
So was you saying, man, I got to continue reading the Bible like my grandfather had me doing, or, tell me, was it like that, or?
When I was in boot camp, because my dad used to send me a letter all the time, was like, always put God first, put God 1st. So it motivated me, and I didn't know where I was at. I was never, I never experienced being outside of home.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. So I started reading my Bible while I was in boot camp. And to be honest, I believe that's what helped me throughout because I was more into the word and just reading it. and it kind of guided me through boot camp, and then I went to A school. That's when I kind of, steered away from the Bible and started to, just go with the flow with everyone else around me. And yeah, pretty much just, and then next thing you know, it's just the Bible was just out of sight.
Mm-hmm.
Out of mind. Yes, sir.
So now, so now you're in boot camp. You in, what was it, Navy?
Yes, sir. U.S. Navy.
You U.S. Navy. How long did you serve for?
About 4 years, sir.
4 years. Okay. So during that time, didn't you meet your husband?
Yes, I did. I met him in boot camp. For
You know, you're not supposed to be fraternizing with the.
That is true. They're very big on that too.
Okay. They said, "Wait a minute, how did you two get married?" Okay, no, but anyway, yeah.
Yes, I met him in boot camp, and then for a brief moment, actually, then we went on to A school, which is where we go for our jobs, to learn our jobs.
Okay.
And we went there, and that's when I seen him. That's when we actually got to, socialize more, and we got to know each other more. From then on, we went our separate ways after we finished our courses for our schools, and then I went to Seoul, Korea, and he went on the ship.
Okay.
He was stationed on the USS Harry Truman in Virginia, I believe it was. Yes, Virginia. Okay. And then after that, I didn't see him again until France. I believe that was 2003.
Okay.
Or yes, after my first duty station in Seoul, Korea.
Okay.
And I seen him in France when I boarded the plane. And the first person I seen driving a forklift was my husband.
Wow.
Well, and I didn't know he was my husband at the time.
Okay.
So I was like, hey, are you staying out of trouble? So then from then on, he just pretty much helped me throughout there and taught me the ropes of how to, because I've never been on a ship. So kind of guide me along there, what to do, what not to do, and stuff like that.
What was his role?
His role, he was in supply. He was a logistics specialist.
Okay. So everybody that needs supplies, that's the guy you go to. Yes. So it was good to be his friend.
It was
Okay.
Yes,
So what was what'd you do with for your spiritual things? I mean, in the military. I mean, I know you read the Bible, and was your husband doing that too? I mean, did you guys get married?
We actually there's a chapel on the plane.
Okay.
I mean, on the ship. Okay. It's a carrier, and it has a chapel for where you could go worship and stuff, and which is pretty awesome to me. And I used to started going there on Sundays. Okay. Because it was a Christian, but they had all the denominations there, so you can worship whenever you want at the chapel, whenever whichever denomination you were. Okay. So I used to go on Sundays and go up there and stuff. My husband at the time he wasn't doing it either. Okay. We were just pretty much, I was just like winging it, just going along, okay, I feel like a pull sometimes, like, okay, go read, go to the, go worship inside. So it was still there. I knew it was still there because I was like, okay, I need to go to church. Yep. So I would go to church on Sundays, but I wasn't consistent with it. Okay. I wasn't. I would go, it wasn't until I got out of the military that I actually started being more consistent and going to church and going to the Christian religion, going there faithfully. We actually, to the point where I started to join the ministry and became part of them, and I would go worship. Okay. It was, that to me was, I enjoyed it because I always started singing when we were young. My culture was really big on singing and, and playing music and stuff. So I said, let's do it. And then I noticed it was just the one thing with me as I read was, my question to a lot of the pastors or to a lot of their deacons, the leaders that they had in charge was, why don't they keep the commandments? I remember. So
you saw this before you even came into the way. Okay, you just had
Yeah, it's just something inside. It was just like these questions, like why, your lifestyle is so completely different in the church compared to, and then I just seen them. It was all about the bringing in people, because I noticed the church was growing. It was growing, going from one Christian church to another, because we transferred a lot, pretty much every 3 to 4 years. Okay. So, and my husband was still in the military. I got out, he stayed in. Okay. Yes. So when we would transfer, we would go to I would research the next Christian church that was similar to the one we were at. Yeah. So then I would go there, but it's just there was still a hole. There was something empty. Yes, it was very empty. And I was like, something's not right. And my husband was, he was gone on deployments a lot. So, after we got married, I probably didn't see him. I would say when we were stationed in San Diego out of 4 years, I probably didn't see him, but for like 10 months out of that 4 years.
Wow. Okay.
He was stationed in Iraq for over a year, and we were in Maryland, so I didn't see him. So it was just pretty much me trying to maintain, but I always stayed reading my word.
Okay.
It's actually kind of strange because I noticed that when he was gone and when I was by myself, that's when I would find myself reading more often and trying to seek, maybe there's something more. That was my question. As far as the Christian church, it got to a point where what upset me was that they couldn't answer my questions, or they would avoid it, or they would, say, "Oh, it's done away with," and I was like, "It can't be."
So what specifically did happen that made you start thinking that why are we not obeying the commandments? Is it something you read? Is it something that you heard?
It was actually something that was done when I joined the choir, and I was in there, and one day, I saw what they call the pastora, which was the female version of pastor in the Spanish, and she was standing like probably not a few, probably this distance. So I tried to walk up to her after rehearsal, and one of the guy, he just like try to tackle me.
Wow.
And I was like, what's going on? What's going on? So I'm like, he was like, no, you can't approach her. You're too close to her. And I was like, I was just going to ask her a question. So that kind of upset me because I was like, I can't ask her a question. And he was like, no, you have to put in, you have to see somebody and you have to sign up to see her and see. And I was like, oh, wow. So it disappointed.
Was this like a mega church?
Yes. Okay. It disappointed me because I was like, how? Wait a minute. I was like, she's not God.
Yeah.
And nor is the pastor. I said, so why? So that disappointed me. And I was speaking to one of our choir director at the time, praise and worship director. She was like, yeah, well, you just have to respect that. And I was like, so. And then I noticed also one thing and then after that, I started seeing all this, like it was all about the numbers. I started noticing, I was like, they don't even have enough people for all these people, to counsel these folks and everything. It was just more of you come in, you go in the front, you say this prayer, and then you're forgiven. And then, you're only temporarily, you have this like feeling, okay, you're restored, you're redeemed. And then you go back out there and redo it again. And they did that faithfully. So I was like, wow, it's like they're just crucifying Jesus over again. That was what I was thinking at the time. So it was very disappointing.
So pretty much you start reading in the Bible that, why are we not keeping the commandments? And you're just asking the pastors, hey, why are we not doing that? And they wouldn't answer your question. You're trying to meet with the pastor's wife, the first lady of the church, and you reach out, you try to, just, oh, there she is, let me go see, and then boom, you get blocked, and you got to put in an application, you said?
It was he said it was a sign-up sheet that you had to sign up to, because there's to meet with them or her. So to me, I was like, wow, okay. So I was like, but you need me for this and that, but I can't speak to her. So I was like, my husband was on deployment. When he came back, he was like, he noticed I wasn't going to church. He was like, what happened? I said, I'm just disappointed. And at this time too, our marriage was rough because he was always gone and I never seen him. So most of my time I spent just writing and working, trying to stay occupied while he was gone. So it was difficult for me.
Now, you were serving too at the same time, right?
No, I had gone out. He stayed in.
Oh, you stayed in?
Yes.
And so, like, how long will he be gone for? Like,
wow.
Employment, right?
He would be gone, I would say, out of the year because the ship usually goes out for like 6 to 9 months out of the year. Wow. But besides that, they forget that there's like a month. He goes out a month. They call it a workup period, where they go out a month, they come back in a week, and this is before you go on your 6 to 9 month deployment. Okay, so within a year, I probably wouldn't see him for about, I would say, almost 10 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was tough. It was very tough, and at the time when I was in San Diego, I did have my family there with me and stuff, which was very helpful. But my family, they're kind of rough to deal with sometimes.
So that wasn't as great.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't because they were like, "Oh, they would take advantage of my husband." I didn't like that.
Okay.
Yes, it was like, "Well, he can buy you this, so we'll take this," and it's like, "No."
Wow.
So my husband would come back and be like, "What's going on?" And I did tell him. I said, "It doesn't feel right. It's just there's something missing." I said, "These people don't believe, and they say they do, but they're not keeping the commandments." And at the time, he was like, "Well, they're doing their best. At least, you know." There was a point when my
Did you guys go to the same church? Sorry.
yes, yes, sir. There was a part when I had sat there with some of the people that we fellowshipped in the church, and we were having somewhat of a Bible. It was a family fellowship at the house, and I had brought up the questions and everything, and I was like, I don't know, it was just something in me that kept trying to pull, like, why don't they? And they were telling me, well, the commandments is done. He's already, Jesus already died for our sins. So now you don't have to, you can, it's okay to sin. It's in our nature. It's okay to sin.
You heard that?
Yes.
Wow.
And I kept hearing it from it. Even, at the time, my husband, when he was sitting there, he was like, yes, you're taking it you're being too spiritual. You're being too, and I was like, no, honey, it's right here. So it got to the point where I was so frustrated because they were ganging up on me when I was trying to say, no, you have to. So I walked out and I just threw my hands up. I was like, Father, I don't know what to do. So from then on, I just stopped going to the church. Wow. And then I just went, didn't go to church anymore. And he was okay with it. He was like, well. So
you guys were going to the same church and you stopped and he still kept on going?
He would go mainly on like the pagan days, like Easter.
Okay, so he's a creaster.
Yes.
Okay, creaster. So
I wouldn't go. I told him, no, thank you. Go ahead. You keep.
So you're frustrated with the Christian faith. I mean, they're not answering your question. You can't even meet with the first lady to even understand how to be a woman. I mean, it's frustrating. So now, how many years do you go from that point of leaving the church, stop going, before you come into straightway?
It was 2013, 14, 15, 16, actually about 4 years.
4 years. So there's a 4-year dead period where you just trying to struggle through your marriage, right? Yeah. So was it a matriarch in your marriage or was it patriarch? How would you describe your... It
was, it was matriarchal. I admit that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
In your marriage during this time, you guys was bumping head. You were doing things the way you knew how to do it. He was doing things. So, I mean, tell me the story again.
Yes. Him being in the military, he was gone a lot. So one thing I always noticed was that when he would come back home, because I was taking care of everything at home, and I've learned to kind of step back and let him adjust to learn him, because to me it was like he was different. So I try to learn, try to get to know him better, because I noticed that we only had maybe a couple months to spend and get to know, and then he was gone. But then I was angry about that too. There was no time until to the point I just got used to it. I started getting used to it. It just started to become something, just comfortable. It was, I was just used to that, the way things went with the military and everything. So when he would come back, it was like, well, I'm doing things this way. You come back and you're changing it. So, I was like, it was tough. I was like, I don't know what to do. And then when he would leave, I would have to go back and carry on, and do things without him as far as the house and everything went. Because, I try to take that off of his plate so he wouldn't have to worry about when he was, out to sea or doing what he had to do. But I know from what my culture and what I was taught, like my mother, one thing she would always tell me was, you need to be smart. You need to be the head of the house. You need to rule your husband.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm hearing this thing. Is this implied or this was being told to you?
This was being taught to me by my mother.
Just say it again, please.
And she would tell me, even now, like when I came to the faith, she would call me, she goes, you're being stupid. You need to rule your household. You need to. And I used to, Mom, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. But it was always how back then, because she was ruling her house. And I said, you see how you and Dad are? I said, you guys fight and argue all the time. I said, you want to know why? I said, because you're trying to take over his role. So, my mom, she's like, you.
And she's a Christian too.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. Yes. So in Christianity, it seemed like does Christianity, when you were growing up, did it kind of go against it or teach against it, or how did they work around some of the stuff in Scripture?
I really believe Christianity made it worse for our culture.
Mm.
And the reason why I say that is because I noticed, like, the older, like my grandfather and them, they ruled the house. The older generation, like probably like my grandfather's generation, I noticed that the wives were very, very submissive. But like my mother, my aunties, and all of them, being in a Christian, I think it kind of messed it up. Because now, I see them, always arguing with like my mom always arguing throughout the years. She didn't, she always, no, it's my way. This has got to be my way. And I'm like, oh, wow.
So, and this is, and you were telling me when we were, that the missionaries came to Samoa, right? So that's what kind of introduced, because Christianity wasn't part of the Samoan culture and everything, so that was kind of brought in there. So, from what you're saying, is that the older generation was more patriarch, but then when Christianity came in, may have changed it to wow, that's amazing. So now, so when you come to Straightway, how did you hear about Pastor Dow or Straightway Truths? I mean, was it just something that you came across, or something that your husband introduced? I mean, tell me, how did you come across Straightway, and what was your reaction, your initial reaction when you heard Pastor Dow?
Wow. I actually, straightway, I found out about it through my husband. Okay. It was actually a trying time because we were on the verge of divorce. And I was living in Oklahoma and he was in Texas. And when I was in Oklahoma, we were about done. We were ready to call it quits and, go ahead and sign the paper. And my mind was made up. His was too. And I can tell because there was prior times to where we called quits, but we didn't mean it. But this time I knew it was done. At least I thought I knew it was done. So when I was living in Oklahoma, mind you, we don't have any children yet.
Yeah.
So when we were living in Oklahoma, I left because he put me out at the time because, I wasn't being obedient. I wasn't listening. So when I had left and I was living away, he came and got me after I had a miscarriage. Didn't know I was married at the time. And he said something to me. He was like, if you come back, if I allow you to come back, will you be obedient? Will you submit? And I looked and I listened to him. I said, I've tried everything else. I said, why not try this? I was like, and he was like, okay, I'm going to come get you. So he came and got me. And I had my car, but he came and got me to help me get back. When I came back, it was the second day I was back, and he was sitting there, and that's when I heard Pastor Dow's voice, and something, it caught me, and I was like, I came and said, who is that? He was like, that's Pastor Dow. And then he was like, you should sit down, because he was getting ready. He goes, I'm going to go get ready for work. Sit down and listen to it. So he left, and then I sat down. I listened to it. I think he came home probably he came home from work, and I had my head covering on. And wow. I had a dress on because I sat there and I listened to 2 of his clips and I listened to a sermon of his. I started researching it after that. It's just something with him. It was like, it felt right. It was aggressive, but that was part of my flesh kicking. I knew that. And I was like, but it just, there was something that what he was saying was right. I think the part where he was like, you women just need to shut up. And I was like, whoa. And I was just like, man, I think he's right. So I sat there and I was like, I started crying because I was like, I've never heard this before. To me, it was love. This is, him trying to tell us, and then found out that Straightway, I researched Straightway, the help meets, and I seen all the sisters, they had head coverings. I knew that they had YouTube. So I was like, subscribe, okay. Wow. So I just started, within that day, I might have listened to, tons of his archives. And then I just decided, okay, I packed up everything I had from the high heels to the earrings to the makeups and everything, and I donated all of them. And sometimes I wish I could go back because then I didn't know you can use some of the stuff and sew it and make. Yeah, but I was like, it's a little too late.
So when he told you to look at it, right? I mean, now I know you're putting it, but this is like days, weeks that you're watching these videos, right? And he didn't tell you to put the head cover on?
No, sir.
You did it based off of?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. It was.
So even with the makeup, your husband never had to tell you to do that. You just started doing. What was said or what happened that made you say, man, I'm gonna start wearing my head cover? I'm gonna start wearing the.
It was when he had mentioned he was talking about how they keep the commandments, how in one of the videos that he showed me, and it was the polygyny too, the polygyny video that he had did with, or the debates, the scriptures that he kept, the backup. He was, it's just all proof. Everything he was speaking was from the word. And then I noticed that the other gentleman, Roberts, what he was speaking was just like, it was pretty much gibberish. It was, he wasn't backing up what he was saying. And then I realized in that moment when I seen the way he had spoke with his wife, that he held her to a higher standard, like she was, and that motto I see in America. And I was like, wow, our minds are so deceived. This is how it is. And then what really got me was when I went to the Sisters Help Me. And I watched their videos and seen how they live here on the land and seen how they kept the commandments. That's when I started to put on the head covering and everything. And I was just kept going from there.
So how did Roberts hold his wife up? I mean,
like that was his God. It's just, you could see it. And I was like, wow, he really, just the way he always looked at her during the interview, like he was getting approval and stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? So you're the man. So I was like, and then some of the things Pastor had pointed out on there too was how, most of the men, our ancestors had many wives. And that's what kept the lineage and it kept the seed going and stuff. So I was like, I never thought of it that way.
So I know, so mentally you get it, that it's nothing wrong with it. It's not a sin, right? But the thought of your husband actually taking on a second wife, how does that make you feel? Have you gone through that, or was it just more like, oh, okay, the Bible says it, I'm in, husband, go get another one,
Oh, wow. At first, when I sat there, I was like, oh, man, can you really do this? I was like, I can feel my flesh fighting. Oh, boy, it was fighting. But then I was sitting there going, man, she can really help. Me and my husband. And then it hit me. He's not mine. He's not mine. If anything, I'm his, and he's not mine. So that's what kept sticking to me. You're the one that's the possession. And I had to learn that as I went along, even now I still am learning that as well too.
So you come from a culture where you are taught that you are to rule your house. Yes. And he needs to submit to you. I mean, just straight up. And now you're going through this transition where he is to rule you and you are his possession. I mean, that's amazing that you have come to that. And you've only been really walking this thing out for a year then. Wow, are you pretty much sold out?
Oh, hallelujah. I have nothing to go back. I mean, there's really nothing to go back to. It's like in Psalms I read, David says, you might as well put me in the ground, paraphrasing it.
Wow.
So
how does your natural family, take your new lifestyle? I mean, the way you treat your husband, the way you live life now, I mean, how has that been?
Oh, that was, at first, it was, I haven't spoke to many of them. My mom, I probably spoke to her. I've spoken to her like a week before I came here. And at first they were like, oh, it's just a phase. She's just going through a phase, And I haven't spoken to my sister. And then when we had our family is very family oriented. We had a bond and, the soul ties and all that. So now I haven't spoken to them. They pretty much don't speak to me. I remember the first time I went and visited them with my head covering and my dress, they looked at me weird. They made fun of me. My brothers even tried to pull my head covering off.
Wow.
So it got to the point where my trip was supposed to be a one day. It turned into an hour because I ended up driving back home. So yes, it was. They kicked, they pulled.
So I guess when Jesus says that you try to live in Christ Jesus, you will be persecuted. Yes. Wow. So, well, you answered the polygyny question, so that I always use that as my $1 million question. But you're pretty so. So what is so let me ask you this: so when you learned about Straightway through YouTube, you listened to it. So then eventually you met the man. You got to come out here to Straightway. What was that like? What was your expectations, and what was it like actually meeting Pastor Dow, meeting the saints here at Straightway?
Seeing him at home and the sermons and stuff. When I was like, I can't wait to meet him. Can't wait to meet the saints. To me, my expectation was, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for just being the one to, y'all letting Yahweh use you to, being, the one in the wilderness crying out, hey, come out, my people. So when I first met him, I actually kind of like shied up, kind of like froze up, and I was like, "Oh, it's like that fear." I was like, "It's that reverence. It's just that respect." But when I, as I got to speak to him, it was like it's just nothing but love that comes from him. Yeah, so it's amazing. I'm blessed.
Now, did Pastor not have any bodyguards? I know he carries, so were there any bodyguards that kept you from him? Or
No, sir, there was none, unless they were hiding in the bushes, but there wasn't any.
Secret Service.
Yes. No, there wasn't any.
And then and the saints, how did you feel about the saints and the sisters?
Wow. Very humbled. I can't say enough. When I first met the saints, actually, it's beautiful because that's when I first received the Ruach, was when I first met the saints. And to be honest with you, it's humbling and it's an honor because I never knew there was people out there like this trying to, walking the walk, implementing it and just, going strong for Yahweh, the Creator. So I'm humble.
Yes. Hallelujah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Any more questions? Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. Yes, that's awesome. Hallelujah. 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 Good job, sister. Wow. Good job. So you went from ruling your house to now submitting.
What's keeping me from seeing them? Out of nowhere, once my ex, they saw that I was keeping the commandments as well, and I think that kind of made them scary because they said that, well, you're in a cult, we don't believe that kind of way, those kind of things like that. And ever since then, her family, they shut off all kind of contact, and I haven't been able to see them since.